Welcome to our Lunchtime Live program on WJEJ. It's a partnership once a month, the third Thursday at this time, with Washington County Public Schools. Our show today is sponsored by Blackboard on a mission to reimagine education. This is Will Kaufman from the Public Information Office, and we have even more guests than we expected. We have more guests than I expected today. So let me introduce everybody, and then we'll get into the meat of our subjects for today. Joining us, Laura Marfut, who coordinates the Homeland Security Program at South Hagerstown High School. Washington County Technical High School Principal Jeff Stouffer. Nicole Stottlemyer joins us as Recruitment and Retention Coordinator with the Fire and Rescue Association here in Washington County, with ties to our Public Service Academy, which is part of our focus here today. And Dave Ryzer joins us, a criminal justice instructor, also with ties to that same program, the Public Service Academy. Welcome to all of you. Let me just get that generally on the table, and we'll take our specific directions. I'm going to start with Laura. Two things. Welcome to Washington County Public Schools, and welcome to the program. Welcome to this program. Let's start with your background. You're doing the Homeland Security Program Academy. What's the actual name of it?
It's a program right now because it is only at South High. So it is four semester, 4-credit program. My background, I retired from the military last spring, so it's been about a year after 32 years. I was an intelligence officer. When I retired, I really planned to retire, but then this job was advertised in the paper, and it sounded like just my thing. So I applied, and I was lucky enough to get the job. And so this has been a whirlwind this year, trying to put the program together and teach it at the same time. But it has turned out better than I expected in a lot of ways.
Let's talk about the expectations you walked into, and what your personal and professional expectations were, and how close were they when you walked in the door the first day?
Well, this all happened pretty quickly just before the school year began, and I really didn't plan to take a paid job after my retirement. I was going to get into some volunteer work, so all of this happened pretty fast. But I guess what I was expecting is if I could put together a program that would expose kids to, or the students to, the types of careers that are out there that are related to Homeland Security, then I will have done my job. So that was really my only expectation. What I found was that Washington County just has some really cool students. Each and every one of them is so interested in, many of them so interested in doing something for this nation. And all they need to do is find that thing that fits their personalities and their skills and their interests. So I guess the excitement and the interest of the students was what surprised me this year. So it has really been a blast. We went on some field trips this year. We went to the Pentagon. Our first field trip was to the Pentagon and Arlington National Cemetery. And we just kind of threw in Arlington National Cemetery because we had an hour before we had to get back, and that was on the way. So we stopped, and the timing worked out perfectly to where we could go watch the changing of the guard at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldiers. So we went up there, the kids filed in. I didn't have a chance to explain to them what they were going to see or what their behavior expectations were, but I didn't need to do that because by the time I caught up with them, they were all seated at the tomb watching the changing of the guards. You could have heard a pin drop. They were so respectful, and you could just see it in their faces that this meant something to them. And for a week or so afterwards, I would come in and catch the kids reenacting the changing of the guards. And I had them write a reflection of their field trip, and many of them mentioned how important it was to be in a place like Arlington Cemetery, and it sort of drove home to them what Homeland Security is all about, what service to this nation is all about.
In that short time you had to, did you put the program together, or did you have did you have some things waiting for you on the table when you first arrived? How did you actually come to the program as it's played out during the school year so far?
It's a little bit of both. There are some things out there. Homeland Security has been in the Maryland state curriculum for a few years. There's a program in Joppa that is the oldest. Frederick County has the contract for putting together the high school curriculum with the bones. So there are some basics out there that were given to me before I started. And of course, I had some flexibility to sort of manipulate it to fit my experience and those things that I could bring to the table. So it's been a little bit of both.
Right. And what's a day like? What's the program? What's in the program? On the day-to-day, when you guys are in school and not running around all over the land, experiencing real life things. Heaven forbid that you would do that. But I mean, when they're in school and in class, what's happening there?
We have some basic broad topics that form the bulk of the curriculum. My students know all about the man-made and natural threats to this nation and which agencies are out there to combat those threats, how they do, what it is they're doing. We have talked about the impact of the 9/11 terrorist attacks to how the nation conducts security. We've looked at the USA Patriot Act, so the laws that govern security, and how do those laws affect our individual freedoms. We have looked at more technical issues like surveillance and biometrics and the use of drones and laws on concealed handguns and all of those things that are part of public debate currently. We have also looked at the current events. My students can tell you all about ISIL, also known as IS or ISIS. They can tell you about Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, Hezbollah, state sponsors of terror. So currently, Cuba is being removed from the U.S. list of state sponsors of terror. My students know all about the history of that and why Cuba is coming off now. So when they pick up a newspaper and they look at the Nation World section, they have a much better understanding than the normal high school sophomore, junior, or senior would have.
When this program just formed how did you even get these kids into the program at the 11th hour?
That is probably a question I would have to leave to the South High administrators.
Okay. I just wasn't sure how the students you have now. How did they? Well, we'll just leave it rhetorical then. How did they get into the program? I guess that.
Some of the students that I have now, because this is the first year,
sure.
Some of them are taking it as an elective. I do have some seniors. For them, it's an elective. For the sophomores and juniors, this is what we call a completer program for them. It's a 4-credit course, and they, of course, have time to take all 4 credits and graduate with this completer. Every student has to have a completer in order to graduate. So this year was kind of a catch-all just for students who are interested in the topic. Now starting next year, I'll be able to take those sophomores and juniors and have them finish the completer. And we're bringing in a lot of new students next year. We have an enrollment of 55 this year. According to sign-ups as it stands right now, we will have over 100 in the program next school year.
Right. What does that mean to you? Those kinds of numbers in the early going.
It means I need more hours in the day.
Well, sure. Right. But I mean, in broader terms, that obviously that shows some level of either success or appeal or some combination of all of that.
That's what I'm hoping. I think maybe my hope is that the students that are in it this year are spreading the word, that the field trips that we go on are attracting some. Just getting the word out on what kind of career options are out there and how broad this field is, and that it is a growing industry, and there's room for people of all skills and abilities. That's what I'm hoping is the word that's getting out there and is causing kids to sign up.
When you first started back in the fall, did the kids and or the families have expectations that either changed or that this has evolved like from those opening moments, those opening months to where we are now?
I think so. Most of them, when I polled them in the first week of class, didn't have any idea what this was going to be about. Homeland Security. Okay, we're going to talk about the Department of Homeland Security, which, that's just one piece of it. So as time went on, my students are very open with providing me with feedback, and they have shared how Homeland Security and the idea has evolved with them. And so I know that, yes, their expectations have changed drastically from that first day of school.
How are you actually preparing them, particularly the younger kids who are going to be in the program for a couple of years potentially? How are you preparing them for careers if this sticks and this makes sense and it really, in fact, gets in their system, gets in their blood, and they're ready. They're ready to continue moving in that direction. How are they being prepared for careers?
What I'm trying to do is get them to keep an open mind and to consider everything. Every chance I get to highlight which particular jobs are out there in different fields, I'll take that opportunity. I have them do some research online. For example, CIA has a good interactive web page where you can put in your interests and your hobbies, and then it will spit back to you the jobs within CIA that might be a good fit for you. And oftentimes they're surprised. For example, the CIA needs beauticians. That's just one example. And the reason they need them is people go undercover. They have to look a certain way. They need to be transformed to look differently, including their hair. So what I try to drive home to the kids is it doesn't matter what you're interested in. You can use that interest in your skills to serve the nation in some capacity.
What do you not cover? What simply either can't come into play, or you don't have enough time, it doesn't fit? What are you not doing in this program that maybe the general public or the students may have either expected or hoped for, maybe in some cases?
There is a lot. Because the field is so broad, It's been a challenge to figure out what I can squeeze into a school year. Some of the things that the kids would like to have seen more of is some specific law enforcement types of things, like crime scene investigations, or, when we talked about forensics, if we could have brought in the microscopes and looked at blood samples and those types of things, that would have been really good. So I think as we go on, we'll try to build the program to where I can take the students to a lab during certain classes and get more into the technical aspects.
I assume your note-taking has been really strong here this first year,
Yes.
Just to know what's working, what's not. Whether it's things you'll keep in the program, but you're going to do them a different way next year and in the years ahead. Or,
Right.
are there things already in your head and in your notes that, boy, that just didn't play, or that, that it didn't fit?
Exactly. I have been relying on the students in this first year to help me with that. And at least once every 2 weeks they hear, okay, you're going to be guinea pigs for this. Let's try it.
Right.
Let's see how it goes. And they have become really good at giving me specific feedback that I can use to change it for next time. Or we'll make changes on the fly, too, if we can.
Right. And practically, from a scheduling standpoint, when do you get the kids? You have them every day?
I have them for the first 4 periods of the day.
Okay. And then the rest of their academic day plays out after that.
Oh, I'm sorry. I have them for just 1 period.
Oh, okay.
During the first 4 periods of the day.
If you're just joining us, this is Lunchtime Live on WJEJ with Washington County Public Schools. Today's show is sponsored by Blackboard, on a mission to reimagine education. I've been talking with Laura Marfut, who coordinates the Homeland Security program at South Hagerstown High School. I have several other guests to talk about the Public Service Academy in the school system, including Washington County Technical High School Principal Jeff Stouffer, who is never hurting for things to do and talk about at the illustrious Tech High. Jeff, give us an overview of the Public Service Academy.
Excuse me, right now we have two different programs in there, which is criminal justice / law enforcement, and we have the Fire and Rescue Academy. Every A day, we have two teachers on the A day for the Fire and Rescue, and every day, A and B day, we have Dave Ryzer and we have Kurt Wood.
Now, when you say that's currently the case, I assume we're looking for bigger, better, broader things.
It looks like the numbers in criminal justice will definitely go up next year. It looks like the numbers in fire and rescue will definitely go up next year. And we're going to be bringing on information and communication technology, which is Geographic Information Systems. It's called GIS.
Okay. Okay, Nicole.
Yes.
Tell us about the fire and rescue angle to this. In fact, you have several angles to this.
Yes.
Certainly the program itself, but in a broader sense, out in the community, out in the county, you have, and not so ulterior motive. It's quite obvious. The success of this program means a lot, not only to the school system, but to the community.
Correct. With the Fire and Rescue Academy, it's been around for a little while, since 1999. We partnership with the Washington County Public Schools and the Washington County Volunteer Fire and Rescue Association. We're now housed at 701 Frederick Street with Criminal Justice. This year, it's a bit of a smaller class, but the numbers have increased. I believe we had over 50 applications as a first and second choice. They've whittled that down to 16. It looks like we're going to have starting 16 juniors incoming next year to pair up with the 5 seniors we have returning next year. So they alternate again. Mondays, I believe they go Mondays, Wednesdays, and half Fridays to the academy, and then they have their academics at Tech High the other days. Next year, they're going to start with EMS. So those seniors, those people that are juniors this year that will transfer over to seniors next year will have their EMS year. And then the following year, once they graduate, the incoming juniors and now seniors will do Fire 1 and 2, as well as vehicle operations.
How did we put this program together? I mean, the actual guts of the program, the day-to-day programming elements. Where did those elements come from?
The Fire and Rescue follows MIFRE, which is the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute training. So they get a Fire 1, a Fire 2, and an EMS, as well as some of these other trainings. And once they're finished the program, they walk away with 16 college credits, and they get the exact same training that a career person would get. So they are hireable as a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid.
So this is not sort of a, like a light version, the sort of the high school light version of fire and rescue training and a curriculum.
Oh, no.
This is the real stuff.
This is the real stuff. They're doing exactly what everybody else is doing.
I don't know that everybody understands that.
No, there's a lot to it. EMS is 165 hours. Fire 1 is 100 plus hours. So there's a lot of training that goes in, not only for the high school students, but as our volunteers, who work a full-time job and then come to volunteer to learn the same thing. There is a lot of dedication and commitment that goes along to it.
Are there folks in our county system who's teaching it?
That would be Instructor Jamie Drawbaugh and Instructor Paul Neal. So they are firefighters themselves. They donate a lot of their time to come and teach the academy. They do lots of things for these kids to make sure they get the training they need to make the grades.
Right. Dave Ryzer is here as part of the criminal justice program. Dave, tell us about your angle to this.
Well, we teach 11th and 12th graders criminal justice. My background, I have about 28 years in law enforcement. My partner, Kurt Wood, is retired after 29 years in law enforcement. So our angle was basically to make it more of a junior type academy that would prepare them for some type of law enforcement academy. We also compete in what's called Skills USA. Mm-hmm. This year we had 12 students compete, and we placed 11 into the states, which is coming up this Saturday. So it's 3 crime scene investigation teams and 2 for criminal justice, which is like traffic stops and calls for service and things like that.
Right. Who are these kids who are in the program? What are their goals? What are they? Who are they?
They are all over the spectrum. They average from paralegals to wanting to be attorneys to wanting to be FBI to U.S. Marshals to police officers to, we have one young lady that wants to be a federal judge one day. So their interest is all over the spectrum. So our goal is to give them the entire criminal justice umbrella and let it trickle down to them and wherever their interest falls. We have guest speakers come in every Wednesday, Thursday from every agency imaginable, and they get to see what it takes to work in that field, whether it's the FBI or we just had U.S. Marshals in this past week. Of course, we lean heavily on Hagerstown Police Department, Washington County Sheriff's Office, Maryland State Police, and Department of Public Safety Correctional Services.
Right. Yeah, I've always found, and part of that's just being, in the news business, but I've often found that the outreach of those, those agencies, Fire and Rescue's also included, are tremendously strong. There's just something about that. The partnerships, the enthusiasm on really reaching out into the community, into school systems, and not for particularly selfish reasons, at all. I mean, recruitment's one thing, but it really is about awareness in the community.
It is. It's about public safety. I mean, that's what it boils down to, and you're always looking for a best candidate for the job. And to become a law enforcement officer, it's not as simple as putting in an application and going through an interview process. I mean, you have a polygraph, you have an extensive background, you have an extensive psychological exam to pass, and there are regulations set up by COMAR, which is the Code of Maryland Annotated Regulations, that says what prior substance abuse, or prior drug usage you can have to be a police officer or a law enforcement officer in the state of Maryland, which is governed by the Maryland Police Training Commission. So, we try to set all those standards, in line, short of, of course, giving a student a polygraph, which we can't do. But, I mean, we set the standards and let them know. And we have, I've only been here, this is my fourth year, and I've probably have about 5 prior graduates into a variety of cadet programs, from Natural Resource Police to Maryland State Police cadets. And so, some of them are going on to college, some of them are going into cadet programs, some of them are going into the military. So, again, their interests are so varied that, their aspirations after high school, vary as much as their interests do.
You just ruined how fair this question might have been, because there's no best next direction for these kids then. I mean, we can't all put them like in the same line and they're all going off to, in the same kind of direction.
No, I mean, it's almost impossible if you look at the criminal justice, again, if you think of it as an umbrella and how it, everything would fall off of that. I mean, we've got a student that wants to be, a criminal psychologist. We've got some that want to be case managers in the prison system, counselors in the prison system, social workers. I mean, it is just so varied. Parole, probation.
How do these kids come in with those sorts of ideas? I mean, that.
Honestly, I think it's not to
No, it's okay.
so much speak on myself, but I think it's our recruitment tools. When they come through for their October walkthroughs, which is what we call them, where they see all 19 facets of Tech High, they get about 2 to 5 minutes in each classroom, and we're showing them, not we as the instructors, the students. We have like 6 or 8 stations set up at crime scenes and defensive tactics and hands-on and handcuffing and what they're going to experience. And we also briefly talk to them about the 9 credits they get from HCC. So they are building, for those that are interested in college, and through the articulation agreement, what they can, accomplish, in that direction also.
I heard you guys had food though too, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
We will bribe if we have to.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Firefighters love to eat.
There aren't any low standards when it comes to recruitment.
No. Our numbers this year, we through our initial walkthrough in October, we had 438 students apply for the program.
Apply for
criminal justice. We've been number one the last 4 years.
438?
Yeah,
and you can take how many?
We took 60. So
holy cow!
Now last year was our bit. We had a 452 last year, so we were down a little bit this year. But since I've come in, like I said, the program's been at Tech High since 1996. Since we started recruitment and going hands-on, I mean, we work out every day. I mean, we go to Planet Fitness. The class right now and the other instructor is at Planet Fitness.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going through withdrawal being here. Because
this is a little subdued for you. Yeah, that's right.
Well, and saying what he said, our numbers this year, this is one of the largest classes that we're ever going to have, or that we've had so far. So it is just being out there, getting the word out. We did one day when they had the visitations, we set Principal Stouffer's car on fire, so that didn't hurt with recruitment as well. So I got to see hands-on with criminal justice.
We shot it before they set it on fire.
Yeah, exactly. this is going to spill over into other recruitment efforts where, you know, we're going to get kids into advanced math programs by using like firearms and setting things on fire.
Well, speaking of firearms, we actually have partnered with Kaplan University. Andy Kramer, who's a former state's attorney, is up there running the criminal justice program, and we took our kids to what's called the FATS machine, the firearms training simulator. Right. It actually uses real guns, but it uses compressed air. They cannot fire live rounds anymore. Right. It's like an advanced video game, but Deputy Tom Routson from the Washington County Sheriff's Office was there that day, and he said our kids, compared to anybody that they have coming through with their tactics and abilities and stuff like that. So It made us feel really good.
I'm going to ask you the same thing I asked Laura. What's not in the program as broad and as varied and as many directions as you have for the students to experience? What do you not do in this program that might be thought of under that umbrella?
I'm trying to think, Mr. Kaufman. I mean,
and first of all, if you call me Mr. Kaufman one more time, that's going to be a problem.
Sorry about that. We try to give them everything that they would get in a police academy. Now, obviously, we can't. I mean, in a police academy, if somebody, doesn't actually follow the exact standards, they're removed. I mean, but we honestly don't have that problem. I mean, if we tell our kids we're going out back to do push-ups and burpees, we've never had a kid tell us no. Right. I mean, it's just they know that we're doing it for a reason, and I guess it's not so much what we don't do, but what we do, and we try to lead by example. There's nothing myself or Mr. Wood don't do with them. I mean, including working out. I mean, but we feel that they have to see it from us to realize how important it is.
Right. What's the difference between the student who gets into the program with those hundreds of kids who don't get in because of the nature of the process and the size of the program? What's the difference between the student who gets in and who doesn't?
A lot of it is when they come back in December for their half-day visits where they're allowed to pick 2 tech areas and spend a half a day in each. We actually interview them. I mean, myself and Mr. Wood, almost like a police interview board would be. And we actually, and again, it's not easy picking 60 out of, 400. Right. We try to gauge who we think has the most interest in the field, why they want to be there. I mean, parents, aunts, uncles, grandparents that were in law enforcement that they kind of grew up around, so they know, what the basis is and what it takes to, it's not easy being a police officer, a corrections officer, any type of law enforcement officer. I mean, I tell the kids, I worked at one point 18 straight Thanksgiving days and 20 couple Christmas days. I mean, it's
law enforcement and radio.
Yeah, I hear you.
It's not nearly as dangerous in here, though.
But I mean, they have to understand that there's going to be sacrifices, and to find, to find that happy medium to be what you want to be, a successful, law enforcement officer, if that's the route they're taking. There's sacrifices to be made. So,
Jeff, let me come to you. How do you, as the principal in the building, how do you support these programs?
We try to get into the classes as much as we can. Mr. Ryzer said 18 to 19 different tech areas. We now have 2 buildings, which is 701 Frederick Street, which is a public service academy. But try to support the teachers, try to support the students as they need any issues. Our biggest concern right now is we keep growing, and it's not a slow growth, it's a pretty fast growth. This year we are having more graduates than South High. Probably within 2 years, we will be the largest graduating school in Washington County. We're inviting, through an applicant process, slightly over 400 students. We have 263 graduates this year, which is by far the largest graduation we've ever had. And North is about 285 right now, and in 2 years, we should have 380 or 390 graduates probably.
Right.
So and it keeps growing.
It's not just these programs.
No,
I mean, it's not just that.
Yeah.
It's around the building.
That are growing fast, and we're taking more students. And I think between the jobs that are out there and the vocations and the expectations of a parent or parents expecting their daughters or sons to have something under their belt before they graduate from high school, I mean, these all are excellent programs here. And my biggest frustration when I was in other buildings and talking and walking with teachers and principals in other buildings, and I'd say to whoever at a different high school, including one I was at, what do you have in your senior year? Well, I have English 12, and I'm an aide for Will Kaufman, or I'm
Right.
whatever. There's not much there when they could be getting quality programs like this.
Right. I mean, and very specific background,
Right.
leading maybe directly into a career, or certainly additional training, additional education, and then on into that career. That's really the way these paths are going, and they're set up nicely.
Criminal justice this year has 14 students on internships right now. That's amazing.
Well, and that's internships are the perfect when they're done right. I mean, it's you're on the job, and you're getting real world flavors of what's to come. So, Jeff, I'm going to have you represent the Public Service Academy. If folks have questions,
They can certainly call me, Jeff Stouffer, the principal of Washington County Technical High School. My direct phone is 766-8060, 766-8060. And we're anxious to have in the future outstanding, top quality students. And the one thing I will say, we really do look for students who have done very well in their first 2 years, really good attendance, really good grades, good GPA, and good behavior, because that's what it takes to be in these academies.
that whole business of like the old career studies and all of that, long gone. I mean, this isn't some fallback destination anymore.
No.
I mean, it's stepping up and getting at programs that are unbelievably
It's
successful.
just high expectations,
Right,
and that's
right.
what they expect in their classrooms.
If you could, I'm also going to ask Laura, for particularly listeners who may have children who would be interested, how can they get a hold of you to talk about the Homeland Security program?
Oh, my cell phone number is 301-964-5205. 301-964-5205. Or also the guidance counselors are standing by to help any of the students with scheduling issues.
Excellent. Good stuff. So anybody who's gotten a taste of what we've talked about today can certainly follow up easily. Today's show has been sponsored by Blackboard, on a mission to reimagine education. Once more, our guests, Tech High Principal Jeff Stouffer, Laura Marfut at South Hagerstown High School, coordinating the Homeland Security program. Nicole Stottlemyer is involved in the Public Service Academy, but serving on the day-to-day as the Recruitment and Retention Coordinator with the Fire and Rescue Association here in Washington County, and Dave Ryzer, a part of the Criminal Justice Program, as an instructor. Thank all of you very much. I appreciate you coming out. This is Will Kaufman. This is Lunchtime Live, the third Thursday each